Malik Nabers. That is the name. That is the concern. And that is the story Big Blue cannot ignore. First, the roster is still being shaped. Then, the schedule conversation exposes the margin. And then, Tiki Barber says the thing Giants fans did not want to hear. By the end, you will know whether this is caution or a real red flag. Big Blue lock-in. The first layer is simple. The Giants are still building around the edges. Another edge defender has been added. The roster is still taking shape, and that matters because this team cannot afford a soft spot anywhere. But real talk before we dive in. Eagles fans love acting like Big Blue is already behind. Cowboys fans never stop talking. Commanders fans suddenly got loud. If you want this channel, by Big Blue, for Big Blue, to punch back every single day, subscribe right now. Every sub is a flag planted at MetLife Stadium. If you are New York tough, type Let's Go Giants and make the rivals feel it. Now back to the point. The supporting stories matter, but they are not the bomb. They are the setup. They show why the Malik Nabers situation is not just about one player's offseason. It is about the entire offensive plan. It is about Jaxson Dart. It is about whether the G-men have enough around their most important weapon. And it is about whether Giants fans should be calm or seriously concerned. Breaking news from the roster picture. The Giants are still shaping this team, and the latest context is that another edge defender has been added. That is not random. When a front office keeps working the edges of the roster, it tells you something important. It tells you they know the team is not finished. It tells you the final version of Big Blue is still being built, piece by piece, position by position. And yes, edge defender matters. Not because this one move changes the entire franchise by itself. That is not the point. The point is that the Giants are still trying to create a team that can survive physical games, pressure rivals, and avoid leaning on the offense to solve every single problem. That connects directly to Malik Nabers. If Nabers is fully right, the offense has a centerpiece. He is the guy who changes the geometry of the field. He is the player defenses have to account for before the snap. He is the weapon who makes life easier for Jaxson Dart, because a true number one receiver changes how a quarterback sees the game. But if Nabers is not fully right, then every other roster decision gets louder. The added edge defender becomes part of a bigger survival plan. The defense has to carry more. The pass rush has to create more disruption. The entire roster has to compensate for any offensive uncertainty. That is why I do not treat roster shaping as background noise. Film don't lie. When your most important offensive weapon has health questions, every defensive depth move starts to matter more. That is chess, not checkers. Personal opinion here. I think adding another edge defender is smart, but it is not enough to calm me down about the bigger picture. The Giants need the whole roster to be tougher, because Nabers is too important to be treated like a luxury. Disagree? Drop your reasoning below. And that is where this gets uncomfortable. Because the first story is about roster construction. The second story is about the road ahead. And when you connect those two things, the question gets sharper. How much margin do the Giants actually have? Not in theory. Not in fan optimism. In the real world, against the Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders, where every mistake gets punished. That is story 2. And it is bigger. Now, here is what most channels miss. The schedule conversation is not just about opponents. It is about pressure. It is about how little room the Giants have if Malik Nabers is not fully right. That is the second layer. The brief makes the point clearly. The schedule conversation reminds fans how little margin for error this team has if Nabers is not healthy. That is the part Big Blue has to sit with. Because the Giants are not playing in a soft division. The Eagles are always circling. The Cowboys are always loud. The Commanders are not sitting quietly. The NFC East does not give you free space to figure things out slowly. If your top offensive weapon is limited, every drive feels heavier. If Nabers is not forcing defenses to tilt coverage, then Jaxson Dart has to operate in a tighter world. Windows get smaller. Defenses get braver. The run game sees different looks. The entire offense loses the player who is supposed to scare people before the ball is even snapped. That is why the schedule matters. Not because we need to predict every result right now. We do not. The news does not give us that. But the principle is obvious. If the Giants are entering a narrow margin season, their most explosive offensive piece cannot be surrounded by uncertainty. Big Blue does not need drama around Nabers. Big Blue needs clarity. The roster shaping from story 1 shows the team is still being built. The schedule conversation shows why that build has to work fast. There is no long runway in this division. There is no patience from rivals. There is no sympathy from Eagles fans if the Giants stumble. And that brings me to my strongest schedule take. I'll say it. In my opinion, Nabers being fully right is the single biggest swing factor in the Giants' season conversation. Not a side note, not a minor concern. The whole offensive ceiling bends around him. Tell me I'm wrong. Now I want your take. Comment worried if Tiki Barber is right to be concerned. Comment calm if you think this is normal offseason caution. No middle ground. Make me defend my position. Quick reminder, if you are still here, you are Big Blue. Hit subscribe, because story 3 is the one that matters most. And now we are at the bomb. The roster context matters. The schedule margin matters. But the real headline is the one sitting right in the middle of the franchise's offensive future. Malik Nabers had a second offseason surgery, and Tiki Barber is concerned. Stay with me. Now, this is what you really came for. The story that flips the entire conversation is not an edge edition. It is not the schedule debate. It is the health question around the player who is supposed to be the centerpiece of the Giants' offense. Here it is. Tiki Barber, a Giants legend, voiced concern about Malik Nabers after Nabers underwent a second offseason surgery. That is the bomb. Not because Tiki is shouting for attention. Not because Giants fans need to overreact to every offseason note. The bomb is that the concern is attached to the player who changes everything for this offense. Malik Nabers is not just another receiver. He is supposed to be the centerpiece. The guy who gives Jaxson Dart a real difference maker. The guy who forces defensive coordinators to adjust. The guy who takes the Giants from hoping for efficient offense to threatening explosive offense. That is why this story is different. If a backup player has offseason maintenance, the conversation is small. If a rotational player needs caution, the team can absorb it. But when the most important offensive weapon has a second offseason surgery, the entire fan base has to pay attention. And Tiki Barber saying he is concerned gives the conversation more weight. He knows what a franchise player means to this city. He knows how fast hope changes when health becomes a question. He knows that Giants fans are not worried because they hate the player. They are worried because they know how much the offense needs him. That is the tension. Is this just normal offseason caution around a premium player? Or is this the beginning of a real durability conversation? The brief frames it exactly that way, and that is the right question. Should Giants fans be worried about Nabers' long-term durability, or should they view this as routine management for the team's most important defensive weapon? Here is where I land. A second offseason surgery does not automatically mean disaster. It does not prove Nabers is breaking down. It does not tell us he cannot be the guy. The news does not say that, so we are not saying that. But it absolutely changes the tone. Because long-term durability is now part of the discussion. Once that door opens, it does not close because fans want good vibes. It closes only when the player is back, moving right, producing, and making defenses pay. Until then, concern is fair. Now connect this to story 1 and story 2. The Giants are still shaping the roster, including adding another edge defender. That tells you the front office is still trying to strengthen the total team. Then the schedule conversation reminds everyone that the margin is tight. Put those together, and Nabers' health becomes the hinge. If he is right, the offense has an identity. If he is not right, the Giants are asking the roster to win with less offensive gravity. That is a completely different season conversation. And this is where Giants fans have to be honest. Big Blue can love Nabers, believe in Nabers, and still admit the concern is real. Those things are not opposites. Being New York tough does not mean pretending everything is perfect. It means staring directly at the problem, naming it, and demanding the team be ready. I'm going on record. In my opinion, this is the biggest Giants storyline right now, and it is not close. Not the edge depth. Not the schedule chatter. Malik Nabers' health is the center of the entire offensive universe. If he is fully right, Big Blue can scare people. If he is not, the plan changes. Convince me I'm wrong. Now you have your answer to the question I asked earlier. Comment worried if Tiki's concern matches your gut. Comment calm if you think this is normal offseason management. If this analysis hit, like the video. That is how we keep the algorithm pushing real Giants breakdowns, not lazy rival noise. 3 stories. 1 picture. The Giants are still shaping the roster. The schedule conversation shows the margin is thin, and Tiki Barber's concern about Malik Nabers puts the spotlight exactly where it belongs. This is not about panic. This is about dependency. The G-men are building around an offense that needs its centerpiece available, explosive, and trusted. Jaxson Dart is the current starting quarterback, and a young starter benefits massively from a receiver who changes defensive behavior. That is why Nabers matters more than any ordinary offseason storyline. Against the Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders, the Giants cannot enter games hoping their biggest weapon is close enough. They need him fully right. They need defenses nervous. They need MetLife Stadium roaring because Big Blue has a player who can flip a drive in one snap. That is the real meaning. The Giants are not just managing a player. They are managing the ceiling of the offense. And if you are a real Big Blue Nation fan, you know exactly why this feels different. Listen carefully. The next breakdown is going straight into what the Giants' offense looks like if Nabers is fully right, and what has to change if the team needs to manage him. That is the video Giants fans need before the next wave of roster decisions hits. So subscribe now. If you are Big Blue for real, do not let Eagles channels, Cowboys channels, or Commanders noise frame this conversation for you. Hit the bell, stay locked, and make sure YouTube actually sends you the next breakdown. Drop your final answer below, worried or calm. I want receipts. Because when the next update comes, we are coming back to this comment section. But listen closely. One decision is still hanging over this whole conversation. How the Giants handle their most important offensive weapon from here. The front office and coaching staff have to protect the player, but they also have to build an offense that does not shrink if caution becomes part of the plan. That answer is coming, and the rivals are watching. The Eagles want Big Blue limited. The Cowboys want another reason to talk. The Commanders want the division conversation tilted their way. So this is where Giants fans plant the flag. We are not running from the Nabers question. We are not pretending Tiki Barber said nothing. We are decoding what it means, and we are doing it together. Big Blue, stay locked. New York tough, all the way. Let's go Giants.